everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Brittany, and on my channel I like to make tutorials about how to sell digital wall art on Etsy, kind of like what you're looking at here. This is my shop that I've had on Etsy for a couple of years. I've made over 1,000 sales. Oh, I recently hit 1,100. I didn't notice that. So I have a little bit of experience doing this, and I love to help people and artists get started doing this. It's kind of a new field, so lots of people always have questions, so I want to help give back to my fellow community of artists and help y'all get started doing this. And in a recent video I uploaded, I think that was my video about how to do private listings, I had a comment from Leela that said that she would love to see a video talking about how I deal with customer interactions, how I talk to the customer when it comes to custom orders. So how do I deal with revisions and delivering samples to customers? So I wanted to go ahead and make that video today for Leela. Thank you for commenting and suggesting that. But first things first, very important. Look at my cat. Okay, that's out of the way. Before we move on, if you find anything helpful or educational or useful in this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you can, because it tells the YouTube algorithm that I'm doing a good job and I'm putting valuable information on the internet. I want to keep getting that data back, so I make sure that I continue to do a good job and not waste y'all's time and put meaningful info out there. I also want to thank the latest donators to the channel that are listed on the screen right here. These are just the people that have donated in the last few weeks since I last shouted donators out. Please know that I really appreciate your donations. They go right back to the channel. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get back to the video. So, okay, now that housekeeping is out of the way, I want to show you guys a recent custom order I did and how I handled that from start to finish, how I organize my files, how I communicate to the customer, etc. So let's go ahead and go to my message center. I'm going to have to censor out some info. We have a real customer here, so I will respect their privacy, but I want to show you guys kind of what happened here. This customer, we'll call her Jane. Jane reached out to me and she said, I'm wondering what additional colors this print might be available in. Also, would it be possible to add a short quote across the bottom? This is a fairly common request I get. Let me show you guys this art just so you have some context. Big bestseller of mine. I actually had another seller on Etsy steal this art and sell it as their own. I have a YouTube short if you're curious how I handled that. Not to divert from the topic at hand. So that was the art in question. She wanted to change up the colors a little bit and put a quote at the bottom. So the number one thing I always keep in mind when I am dealing with custom orders is communication, communication, communication. There are so many ways that you can get a customer confused, you can scare them off, you can miscommunicate, and the point is to try to prevent accidents, try to prevent multiple revisions needed because there was a miscommunication. So my number one thing I always keep in mind is over-communicate. Maybe to the point where you feel like you're being annoying, but it's better to over-communicate to the customer so they know exactly what they are expecting and what they're getting into and how this works. I go about things a bit of a different way than probably some sellers do. The safer route, and I don't know how to do this exactly on Etsy. I don't do it this way. I believe there is a way, like if a customer reaches out for a custom order, I believe there is a way to like set up the listing first, make them pay for it, and then do like the sample process. That is the safer route for the seller. I don't do it that way because I want the customer to feel as comfortable as possible. Am I risking wasting my time and having the customer just completely not go through with their purchase? Yes, and that's actually happened to me before, but I would say 95% of my orders, my custom orders where I do it the method that you're about to watch, it's been fine. People on Etsy don't typically come to waste artists' time. They know that things are being handmade. They come here for that reason. They're most likely not going to waste your time. There are a few duds out there. It has happened to me, so I just want to put that out there. I don't create the listing for them to purchase until the very, very end of the process, until they are completely satisfied with what they're requesting, they've approved a sample, and they're agreeing to pay. I do it at the end. The first thing I approach with a topic like this is I want to know exactly what colors and what font they want, which sounds duh, but you wouldn't believe the amount of miscommunication that could happen in this scenario. What if the customer says, I want a lime green? Well, there could be a million different lime greens. So you don't want to assume what lime green they're talking about. So what I tell the customer to do, and I'll read you what I said here. I said, inspiration images would definitely be awesome if you have any to send. I always say that I want them to send color swatches of fonts that they like, so I know exactly what they're expecting. Let's read the whole message actually. Thanks so much for reaching out. Always thank them for their time. Thank them for supporting small business. They don't have to reach out to you, so thank them, which sounds obvious again, but thank them for their time. For colors, we could do any custom color palette you like, background and line color. See, I'm over communicating what I mean by the colors. You can send me images of swatches and I can match them exactly. I love to say that. That's just another thing to say to make them feel more comfortable. I can tell them I can get you exactly what you want. So instead of assuming what kind of lime green they're talking about, I tell them, hey, send me a color swatch exactly of the type of lime green you want and I can match it exactly. And that tells the customer, okay, I'm going to get exactly what I want here. I tell them in very upfront, I tell them what any kind of extra costs will be. I'm sure you've been in an instance where you've done a custom order with somebody else and the first thing you're asking yourself is, what is this going to cost me? So be upfront with that. Don't waste their time. Don't waste your time. Be upfront as soon as possible in the conversation about what you're going to charge them. I did that here for the quote at the bottom. That would cost $10 extra. I don't charge extra for color changes. Like, this is a very simple color change to do. To change the background and the line art, it takes me 2 seconds. So that's how I try to stand out as a seller. I offer free color customizations. Now the quote, not free. So I made sure to readily communicate that. I said, what were you thinking for the quote? Do you have any font styles in mind? Inspiration images would be useful. I'm trying to get as much information from the customer as what they're thinking in their head as possible. And of course, communicate, like respond to them very quickly. Don't leave them hanging. You'll lose sales. She said, thanks for being willing to make adjustments for the color palette. I'm torn between a forest emerald green and a light lilac lavender, maybe with white for the line color. Okay, so this happens a lot actually. Customers will be like, oh, I'm not sure. I have felt before, and I can empathize with this, like it's kind of uncomfortable sometimes to just be like, you should do this. Because they're getting a custom order, you want them to have exactly what they want, right? You want it to be perfect for them. But sometimes people are really wishy-washy, and you're trying to get this done as fast as possible. So this is where you're going to use your expertise, and you're going to shorten the amount of time it takes to complete this, and you're going to tell them what you recommend. So she said, I'm torn between 2 colors. So I used my best judgment, but I'm going to recommend her what color to use. I'm not going to be like, whatever you like. That's going to invite like extra time to be spent on like, I don't know, maybe this. What do you think? Maybe this. What do you think? Like, just get it done, pick a color for them and recommend it. Use your expertise and what you think will be best for your art. She said, I'm not set on these swatches. The quote that I'd like to use is hope and keep busy. I'm thinking in all lowercase. I like that she specified that. That is something I would have asked. When it comes to quotes, things can get real dicey there. Make sure you understand, do they want it all lowercase? Do they want it all uppercase? Do they want it to look, what do they call that? Tracking? Do they want the letters to look really spread out? Do they want it to look really thin together? Those are all things you need to keep in mind. Do you have any recommendations for what would look best? She's even asking for you to do that for her. Use your expertise, get that sale done quickly, and make your strongest recommendation. So she sent me a color swatch. She sent me a swatch of the font she likes. That is super helpful. Here's where I try to make that sale. I say I would personally opt for using the emerald green and the white line color to provide more contrast so you can easily see the line work. I think that'd be lovely. I'm just telling her what I think would be best. And I wasn't lying. I don't think that purple would suit a white line art. You wouldn't be able to see it. As far as the font, I have some like that I can play with. And then this is the part where I start to be upfront about what the process will be like. I'll get a sample and get back to you by the end of today. I always make it clear exactly when I'll get back to you and what the next steps in the process will be. No extra cost for revisions. That's another thing people are wondering, like, do they have to pay you for your time creating the samples? I readily communicate no. I want them to be comfortable. This is going to be free, right? And here I say I'll keep going as many times as needed to get things right for you. I'm making the customer comfortable with the process here. She said, that sounds perfect. Thank you so much. So at this point, I start creating samples, and I was in a situation here where this font that she showed me was not a free font, and I wanted to use a free font. So what I did was I went to defont.com. And if you're not familiar with that, it's just a website where you can use free fonts in situations like this. You can download it to your computer. I looked for fonts that looked very similar, and I found 4 that looked similar. So I knew what I needed to do for her was provide 4 samples. Again, by the end of the day, I said, hi, here are your samples. I don't have the exact font you provided. I said it would be an extra cost if you want to go that route. I'm being very clear about why I'm not using that exact font. But I tried to find some that were similar. Here's 4 samples for you. Here's a part where I really want you to, like, if you remember anything, remember this. Clearly label your samples. I've seen people where they're not clear about labeling their samples, and they'll just send 4 pictures back to back, and then they'll be like, oh, look at the second picture, look at the first picture, what do you think about the third picture? And like, what if they receive the images in a different order than you know? So their first image would be different than your first image. So clearly label your samples. I even labeled the file, I'm not sure if they can see the file name, but on my end, I even labeled the sample file names with a unique identifier. Sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, sample 4. So I said, let me know what you think. I'm open to any suggestions. She says, I love sample 2. See, we reduced the time of communication. She doesn't have to say anything like, wait, which one is the second one? Sample 2. Love that one. So this is the part where I make it clear what the next steps are. I said, okay, perfect. I'll get your private custom listing made for you sometime tomorrow. Then I'll send you the URL for your listing here in this message, and you'll be able to check out from the URL. So pretty clear what's going to happen next. I go ahead and make her files. If you need help on what I mean by that, go ahead and click in the top right of the video you're watching now. There's going to be a little, a letter I that appears in the top right. I will put one of my most popular videos where I explain top to bottom how I do this process if you need help with that. I make all her files in the exact way she wanted, the sample she approved, and then I create a custom listing. And again, if you want to know how I create custom listings, click in the top right, or I'll link a different video I made where I talk about how I make my private listings. After that, in the time promised, I deliver her files. So I say, here's the link to your digital files. This URL is her private listing. So let's go look at it. I always label private listings, custom listings with this cover listing photo here. It just says private listing reserved for someone special. On the next image, it is an extra step. You don't have to do this. I like to do this so they can see their file mocked up. They know that this indeed is their file. It's not getting confused with anyone else. I include this as well, which it's zoomy time apparently. I include this picture as well. I had somebody ask how I made this. I made this in Canva. If you want to see a tutorial on this, let me know. I can walk you through it. Just so they're familiar with what files can be printed at what sizes, and to, again, over communicate that, I even provide those instructions right here in the DMs, in the messages. I say, here's your files. This file is good for these sizes, blah, 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 blah. Watch that first video I recommended if you need help understanding that. I offer help getting her files printed. This is a new area for people. You have to remember that. So no matter how long you've been into this digital realm of art and getting digital files printed for physical wall art, no matter how long you've been in it, you have to remember customers, like you were there once too. You've never heard of digital art and you thought, what is digital wall art? And you had to take a while to get used to it and know what it was. So be patient with them if they don't understand, offer them help. It's confusing. So always offer them help, over communicate, make sure they're very, very comfortable with this purchase. And I say thanks for supporting small business. And that's pretty much it. I try to, like I said, over communicate. Keep your files organized. Now, I didn't talk about revisions because there were no revisions necessary here. So let's say she liked sample 2. So let's look at sample 2. Let's say she liked sample 2, but she said, I want the font to be smaller and I want the letters to be more spread apart. So what I would do at that point is I would make a revision on sample 2, doing exactly what she said. And again, the important thing here is keeping your samples clearly labeled. I would probably label those samples as sample 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, etc. And I would communicate that in the messages to her. Like where I said, this is sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. I would say, okay, here's your revisions to sample 2. I would say, here's sample 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So she knows exactly what's going on and it doesn't get confusing. Because when you're on like your 5th round of revisions, and you're looking at all those samples in one stream, it will get confusing. Like I said, if you take anything, clearly label your samples, keep them organized. So that's how I would handle revisions. Thankfully, I didn't have any in this one. And again, I like to think that's because I overly communicate. I get as much information from the customer that I can to make sure I know exactly what they're looking for. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, please let me know. This was a quick one. Again, it was just a request by a viewer. So if you have any requests for topics you want me to cover in this realm of Etsy, please let me know. And as a friendly reminder, if you found anything helpful or useful in this video, like, comment, and subscribe wherever you can, and I will see you with the next one.